Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Steve at Gemstone, and I hope you're all having a good day, morning, night, life. Today we'll be digitalizing a redesigned version of my OC Synth-IA. This one I did live on my Instagram, so be sure to check me out over there if you haven't already. But today we'll be reading from the subreddit r/prorevenge, so I hope we're in for some good ones today. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, first up we have, do not want me to work my notice. Okay, I will not work during my notice. I had originally posted this in r/malicious compliance, where someone suggested I post in one of the heavier revenge subs. This happened almost 5 years ago. Some details are intentionally vague. This will be a long read, but I promise you it'll be worth it in the end. Okay, let's hope so. I was working in an organization that was super toxic. So much so that we were a revolving door. Most employees stayed only for a few months. To counter this, our management put a 3 months notice into everyone's contract, including the existing employees. It's not strictly illegal where this happened, but very unusual. I believe the idea behind it was to make it harder for the employees to find a job outside, as potential employers didn't usually want to wait 3 months. However, this didn't work, as most people simply quit and waited a month or two before starting their job hunt. I was there for almost 4 years. I needed the money, so I put up with whatever abusive shit was thrown at me. My boss was a guy, we'll call Vince, not actual name. Now, Vince was not particularly good. He sometimes respected the fact that I was the most tenured grunt in this organization. Do note that after about 2 years, I was doing a lot of additional work, in addition to my official responsibilities, primarily because I was the only one who knew how to do those. Everyone else had already left. This will become important later. Enter Rajesh. I'll just call him Raj. Raj was poached from a somewhat infamous company and was literally flown in from a different continent. He was brought in to strategically improve our division. This was quite strange given that our division generated most profits. Within months, Raj made the environment even more toxic. He pulled Vince's team under him and got Vince fired. And he actively encouraged us grunts to spy on each other. Raj also had it out for me from day one. Until today, I don't know why he started making my life much harder than the others. This accumulated in him taking me aside and telling me that I was not pulling my weight. Now, at this point, I was doing quite well in the organization. Plus, I've been doing a lot of additional work crucial to our business since I only knew certain systems and processes. See high attrition above. So I was quite angry. I started looking out. I wasn't still brave enough to quit and start looking. Fortunately, I was able to find a job that was willing to wait the 3 months. So it was my turn to take Raj aside and tell him I quit. Boy, Raj was pissed. He went from denial, you can't quit, to negotiation, what if I give you a raise at the end of the year, before acceptance. Thus, I was serving my notice and working away like an honest bee. My usual work plus the additional work. At this point, I was called in by HR and told that Raj wanted me gone. The insane part was that they wanted me to pay the company the 2.5 months shortfall in notice. I obviously refused, then went back to and checked the contract. Turns out that a notice of less than 3 months could only happen through mutual consent. Ooh. And the initiating party company, if they wanted me gone sooner, or me if I wanted to leave earlier, had to compensate the other party for the shortfall. Ooh, she's got to play that Uno reverse card now. The next day, I stopped doing almost all my work. I logged in and logged out of my hours and did jack shit. I stopped doing any additional work I had been doing and started taking it really, really slow on my primary job responsibilities. Since no one else understood the details of what I did, I knew it would be very hard for Raj or HR to prove that I was doing any of this on purpose. Then I sat back with my popcorn. Soon there was a complete meltdown all around. Raj would pull me into meetings and scream and try to bully me, and I said nothing but smirk to his face. The next they tried to have someone else learn the additional work I used to do from me so that they could work what I did. Remember I said earlier how I was the only one who knew some of the old systems and processes? Well, now I claimed I didn't really remember any of them. So obviously there could be no handover. Raj could do nothing as none of this had been my responsibility or part of my contract, since the leadership had been only too happy to see me do this for free. Okay, now I'm starting to see the pro-revenge part of this. Soon my workplace turned into a dumpster fire. The HR, Raj, smartened up and offered to buy out my notice if I cooperated and helped transition my work. I refused, as you do. Then to twist the knife further, I started having meetings with fellow grunts. Remember, everyone was always a newbie. And encouraging them to leave as well, indirectly, nothing that could implicate me. HR tried to get me to leave twice more, but I ended up serving the full 3 months. Remember the mutual consent part? TLDR, boss screws me over and tries to extort me. I start a dumpster fire. Made minor edits for readability. Thanks for the feedback. Edit 2. Since a lot of people asked, the company is still around. They started outsourcing a lot of work to Asia, specifically the country that Raj was originally from, where I believe the labor laws are much less stringent and employees are much more willing to put up with a toxic work environment. Raj is also doing well for himself. He's now moved on yet another country. A lot of the Redditors are from. And with an employer that employs a ton of people, I suspect some of you reading this have or will come into contact directly or indirectly with him. My condolences. Okay, so what do I think of this? First of all, a 3-month, what is it called? It's not leave of absence. It's like a 2 weeks notice. A 3 months notice is way too much. That's ridiculous. That's a whole freaking season. Other than that, yeah, I don't like. I always love kind of being in that position, like knowing more than other people. So, I mean, I feel like it happened to me at McDonald's where, even though it's not much, you know, there's still new people that don't know anything. And they wanted me to teach them, but they didn't pay me for it. So, you know, I wasn't as inclined to do it as they would have, liked me to be. No, but this is on a freaking company scale, not just like a little restaurant. Honestly, good on. Did the OP say they were a girl? I don't know. I got the sense that they were a girl. But no, good on them. I love to see it. Next we have throw your trash in my yard. Enjoy moving. My now ex neighbor was pretty trashy. Haha, get it? Let's not. Okay, let's focus. Focus. Cars sitting on blocks in the yard, cigarette hanging out of their mouth while she's 9 months pregnant. Blasting Kid Rock tunes level trashy. Well, this lady decided that paying $1 per trash bag was just too much. Our township will only pick up your trash if it's in the approved purple bags though. So normally, trash bags will just be left behind. The trash truck drives behind, right past them. Okay, her solution, buy normal trash bags at the dollar store and have her 8-year-old toss them over the fence of my yard. Now their trash is my problem. After confronting her, she just laughed, so I called the cops. They said that since the kid was so young and there was no proof of his parents told him to do it, there was nothing they could do. Oh, that's typical. So this went on for about 4 months. Me taking the bags of trash they toss in my yard, wrapping them in purple bags, and I paid out of pocket for and putting them out on the curb. Pretty freaking annoying. Not to mention the extra $3 or so a week I'm spending on trash bags. I'm slowly growing to hate this woman. It was annoying at first, but I'm getting pretty mad. Mind you, I own my home and she was just renting hers. So I get a hold of her landlord and I offer to buy the house for a decent amount above market value, 17%. He jumps at the offer, and soon I'm the proud owner of the house next door to me. Sure, it cost me $71,000, but what price do you put on peace of mind? All right, we'll put my thoughts on this after. The very first thing I did was serve them an eviction notice in person across the same fence they like to throw their trash over. That was 31 days ago. As of today, the unit is empty. I don't know where they went, but they're someone else's problem now. All because she didn't want to pay out of her own trash bags. I think I'm going to knock that house down and make my yard bigger. I've been wanting to put a handball court. Note for profile stalkers. This is not the same neighbor with the husky. I like those neighbors. Alright, so thoughts on that. Honestly, me personally, I wouldn't have bought the freaking house. 71,000 is just a lot. I don't even know how, she didn't even say the size of it. If it's like a 1-story or, the square footage or whatever. Still, I think, I don't know. They must have been pretty obnoxious to not want to pay $3, every time the trash comes around. Which I honestly, I do get it. It would have been freaking annoying. It builds up, but so does a whole house purchase. But I mean, to each their own. Personally, I wouldn't have gone that far. I would have thought of something more, like low-level crime, or it probably would have been under petty revenge is what I'm getting at. Pro revenge, this is extreme. Not my cup of tea, but still enjoyable. Okay, here we have a good lengthy one. I orchestrated a vast conspiracy to get a coworker fired. Using a throwaway because the details are specific and hard to change. I used to work at a hospital data center in the network operations group. We physically sat in a room 24/7 next to the servers to make sure things didn't catch on fire, monitored for alerts, and did routine things like swap out tape backups, but it was pretty simple work. This was ostensibly a tech job, but there were a few people who had been there for many years back. When you had to change out the printer paper and run a command from IBM mainframe. It was on really specialized hardware and software that was difficult to apply elsewhere, so it had to become a dead-end job. And because there were people who weren't tech savvy at all really, we weren't given much responsibility. You can't tell some people they can log into a server and others not. So we're reduced to the lowest common denominator. We are a network operations center where nobody was allowed to interact with any network equipment. Lowest common denominator, you say? Meet the new supervisor, Karen. Not really her name, but definitely a real spirit. Had been there for over 20 years and got the job solely based on seniority. She was a sociopath, narcissist, and one of the most unpleasant people I've ever encountered. Shortly after I was hired, we were brought by another hospital and combined data centers. Karen was demoted to shift lead and had to work with us in the 24/7 rotation. She was very bad at her job, and our responsibilities diminished to very little. We had no agency to fix problems, but our own because it had to be a problem that Karen could solve. And Karen was both lazy and stupid. After a couple of years, I was promoted. On my first day after the announced promotion, she said, "You will fail," just straight to my face. But she had a powerful tool at her disposal, the hospital bureaucracy. Since the place was unionized, the hospital had just cause firing policy instead of an at-will policy, even for non-unionized employees. This is, I think, generally a good thing, but on the edges, it set up ridiculous situations where it was impossible to lose your job unless you were really egregious about it with repeated violations, or you showed up drunk/high. We had someone steal computer equipment and they kept their job. It was nuts. And Karen had been there for nearly 30 years, so she wasn't getting fired without a lot of work. That's okay. She was terrible at her job. One of the most important things about the job was monitoring an alert which would pop up, and there was a procedure we had to go through in order for some data to go through. If we didn't do this, a nurse wouldn't get the lab results back. So in one case, an alert came in, Karen saw it, she decided to keep browsing the web. Because of this, a patient from the cardiac ICU was going into surgery, and the doctor/nurses operating on the patient couldn't get a white blood cell count, I think. I'm not a doctor, I just work in the high building with a lot of them. Something very dangerous for this patient, and the patient died. Wow. This still did not get Karen fired. The reasoning from HR, well, it didn't directly lead to harm. She didn't even feel bad about it. Just a complete soulless sociopath. I'm a real pro worker in general, but some jobs you just absolutely have to do. I was so mad she had to go. I kept a paper trail of everything she messed up on. It wasn't nitpicky, literal life and death stuff here. Verbal warning, first written warning, second written warning, final written warning, termination. A slog I'd rather spend my time doing than anything else. But that's the way it went. Then she figured out she could work on the system, and she approached the work Armageddon termination. She would tell HR she was being harassed. The person harassing her was different every time, which would trigger a mandatory investigation. This investigation took about 6 months. They wouldn't find anything, and we would carry on, except these warnings. They had 6 month expiration, so she would always reset the clock when it got close. Wow. I mean, when you have nothing better to do, right? Everyone else was helpless. Even the CIO, I couldn't do anything about it. Because of the bureaucracy, Karen was a menace, and the entire IT department had to interact with the data center staff. And that meant interacting with her. She was very universally disliked, and she had 20 years until retirement, and she would outlast the heat death of the universe. Then I had an idea. What if, under the guise of developing skills relevant to the 21st century, required everyone working in the Network Operations Center to pass the Net Plus exam? It's not a difficult exam, but not trivially easy. I felt pretty sure that everyone on the team would fall above the line between able to pass and not able to pass. Except Karen. We would give everyone better titles, a significant pay raise, and entrusted to do more with the equipment, which is something everyone desperately wanted. Then people could actually leave the hospital with transferable skills and do something else if they want to do and not feel trapped. I spent 3 years in meetings with HR, with my director, with the CIO, with HR again, job description meetings that took 6 hours to tweak small wording, hundreds of hours in meetings, red tape hell, absolute red tape hell. Do you have any idea what it takes to approve significant raise in a bureaucratic muck factory like that? But the raises were crucial because it would absolutely not be fair to ask this of them. Pass the test or lose your job. Without a large carrot attached would lead to mutiny. And then it got approved. I also wrote the exam requirement into my own job description. It was important to still be able to do the job and not let my skills lapse because I was promoted. Also, this meant I could cover for people when they were on vacation or sick. Plus, I also got that sweet, sweet pay bump. It went over well. I was nervous, but the plan made sense and I was able to communicate that. People would be more marketable, the job would be interesting, and most importantly, they would be making 20% more than they were before. And I think it really helped, and I also gave myself the same requirement when I absolutely could have chosen not to. The hospital would pay for off-site training. They would still get their full hourly during the training, including shift differential for second and third shifts. We paid for all the materials. I scheduled 8 hours of work for people to go someplace quiet and study. The job itself had been a ton of downtime, so people could study. But this formally carved out time anyway. We paid for the exam, and if they failed, we'd pay for the second attempt. We were given 8 months to pass the test, so this is how it was for the first 8 months. I did not want Karen to have any excuse whatsoever, and somehow convince HR that this process was rushed or unfair. Everyone passed the first attempt except Karen. Karen did not pass her second or her third attempt, a bonus attempt. Karen, being classic narcissist, thought this was somehow all about her. That this was a vast conspiracy engineered over multiple years and hundreds of hours to get rid of her. And she would tell everyone within earshot that that's what was going on. Yeah, okay, Karen. You realize how insane that sounds, right? Not everything is about you, sheesh. Well, okay, in this case it is, but still. Only I, and 2 other people, know that. I remember that exact time and date we told her. She was just in such deep denial that it could ever happen. She thought that she was bulletproof. I don't think I will ever achieve anything more satisfying in my career. I'm not usually one to take satisfaction in seeing someone's livelihood go, but she was a uniquely awful person. She was a patient danger, and it was been only nearly a decade of working with her by this point, and I was just sick and tired of her BS. I was the hero the day she was fired. I went to the main office for a meeting, and people were congratulating me like I had won or a marathon or something. Even the CIO, they were just happy for me that I didn't have to supervise Karen anymore. But in my headcanon, they were congratulating me for pulling off this elaborate plan. Morale back at the Dender Center was also high. We learned interesting things. A couple of my coworkers left for better gigs elsewhere. The ones who were content staying were able to stay, and we had more money and job security. And because anything could set off a BS Karen harassment complaint, people were stressed out working with her. Her being gone was like a breath of fresh air. Newcomers were told stories of Karen, and they seemed exaggerated. They were not. In order to solve a very important and extremely difficult problem, I pulled off a vast workplace conspiracy that improved the lives of the people, and I worked in addition to keeping our patients safe. Getting Karen fired is the greatest, most difficult accomplishment I can put on a CV anywhere. Oh my god. This guy literally changed the world. Dude, didn't I read somewhere like this took 3 years in the making? 3 years of like, he said red tape, which is like, I guess, legal stuff. Like, oh, you can't do that. It's against the law. But he bypassed it somehow in order to get this one person, this dangerous person that was causing people to die, out of that environment. And good on him. I applaud you. And with that, that's going to be all for today's episode. Those were some pretty serious stories. I mean, I'm still hung up over the one where she literally bought someone's house just so they could leave. That's extreme for my taste, but I mean, this is life. This is what goes on in the world, and I'm just here reading about it. But I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy. And until next time, bye-bye.